Hi everyone, welcome back at the Vested Summit. Um, I'm very much looking forward to the next session. We have a full panel of super interesting guests who are going to talk about blockchain for sustainability and ESG. Wherever you're watching, if it's YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you can always drop your questions and we'll pass them on to our guests. Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity. This panel, it really fits into um, to the theme of the this year's summit as well. Joe, Ben, maybe just take it away and introduce your wonderful guests.
Sure. Well, thank you, everyone. Welcome to the panel. And when you talk about ESG and also blockchain, that's the intersection of probably one of the hottest area, that the intersections of ESG and the technology. We have a panel, a very distinguished panel. I won't go into detail and reread everything that you can see on the bio, on the speaker's bio on the website. However, I want to point out that we truly have an international coverage here. I'm Darren from Hong Kong. I'm Joe Pan, the moderator. I'm the advisors to ImpactNFT. We focus on creating and promoting NFT that's strictly linked to the United Nations defined the 17 sustainable goal that making impact for the social and environmental impact. And with us, we have Alex dialing 100X and dialing in from Portugal. You can almost hear there's ocean waves from his microphone, but he's enjoying his time away from the States. And then the other two guests are both dialing from the state. We have Darren dialing in from New York, and Chris dialing in from Austin, Texas. So, and then of course Amber is somewhere out there in Aruba, and so we have a truly footprint with many of the guests from all over the world, and with our audience over here that we hope to share their stories, and especially as entrepreneurs, as founders, what are the trials and tribulations and challenge and the excitements they have experienced. And it's good to have a mix of investor and operator here. So I may want to start with the investor here, and then we go around for introduce. I hope as an investor you can talk about what is the most recent investment you have made and why ESG related, and then we'll go to Darren and Chris, and maybe you can tell us about what stage of your company and what exactly is the product, the main product you're about to launch or you already launched. So take it away, Alex, if you can share with us, what is your journey from a technologist and to now you're to an investor. Tell us about how you got there.
Yeah, so I was a technologist building financial technology on Wall Street for a while. And when I learned about blockchain, I became very interested in the topic. Initially, back in 2016, when I was first looking at blockchain technology and companies building various kinds of blockchain system, I got very excited about the potential. And then over time, I realized that there was a lot happening that was very typical of a new market, especially in the cryptocurrency and decentralized finance and now in NFT space. That was, not so interesting to me because it was very much based on speculation, almost to the point of gambling. But nevertheless, I saw the potential of blockchain to help global efforts such as climate and supply chain transparency and those kinds of things. And so after working for about 4 years at CoinFund, which was doing more of the cryptocurrency-based investments, I co-founded A100X, which is a rolling fund on the angel list that invests in founders who are not, I guess, say, were not vetted by Topl market and number running trying to go we think less key and so invest in a dozen companies already, including some that are represented on this panel, and looking forward to doing more of that. Is my audio okay?
Yeah, you were cutting off a bit.
I don't think that can be changed. I apologize for that.
Okay. So no worry, we got the logistics of it. You from coin fund to now you're running your own fund, and you explore and really enjoy the opportunity in blockchain. So let's go to Chris. If you can tell us your journey and how you jumped from working as a executives in some other company, and then now running your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. So I actually went from a student kind of directly into the entrepreneurial side of things. I discovered blockchain technology in 2012, 2013 when I was back at university, and basically fell down the rabbit hole that a lot of people do, trading, mining, playing around with Ethereum smart contracts early on when the testnets launched in 2014. Topl, the company I'm with now, is actually the second startup I've had in the blockchain space. Previously, actually a bit like Alex, I was on the financial technology side doing mobile payments, things like that. And then it was really 2016, 2017 that I discovered the intersection essentially between ESG technology or ESG and blockchain technology, and really just how amazing of a disruptive fit that there was there, really to build new markets, to be more inclusive, and to really just kind of push boundaries in a way that, ESG markets, carbon markets, things like that simply hadn't been able to before that. So that was really when Topl got started, and we, began doing work, supply chains, carbon markets, things like that. What Topl is fundamentally, we are a layer one blockchain built exclusively for impact and ESG. So all sorts of supply chain transparency projects, financial inclusion projects, and carbon market and sustainability projects are all, moving onto the Topl blockchain for that like blockchain infrastructure, but built specifically for kind of their needs. So that's the space I've been in for the last 4 years, and it's really an amazing space with a lot of energy, especially over the last 18 months, I do have to say. So excited.
Thank you, Chris. We'll come back to the point about the carbons and ESG, and then how the layer one supports all that. Darren, tell us about your journey, and what have you been doing, and tell us about Triangle. What's the main products and where you at?
Thanks for that, Joe, and great to be here with everyone. What we're trying to do is really at the intersection of big data and financial services. So taking both of those concepts and really merging them into one. My background, first in technology at Sony, developing products, then their venture capital group, 20 years of financial services experience after that. I've seen the evolution of technology in the financial services space, from fractions to decimalization to electronic trading to high frequency trading to big data. And we see ourselves kind of at that intersection of that next chapter, where you're able to take big data from smart meters and IoT devices, aggregate that together into portfolios of information where end stakeholders, whether it's credit rating agencies, asset managers, insurance companies, governments, citizens, can basically leverage this information in the use cases that's most beneficial to them. So it's been a great journey thus far. We feel fortunate to be at really the epicenter of where we think all roads need to go in the future for all of those stakeholders, because climate compliance is a key aspect to it. And it's about us trying to create solutions that meet the market need.
Fantastic. It sounds like the climates, and I'm hearing the reoccurring words, not only ESG impact, but climate seems to be it. I happen to be have a focus on climate as well. So I'm going to probably dive into that a little bit more. But tell us, Darren, back to you. What stage of funding are you at? And then we'll move to Chris and come back to Alex. So what stage are you at, right, in terms of funding?
So right now we're approaching our Series A round. It's very exciting. We're developing products at a rapid pace. We're making great connectivity, or we're having great connectivity with potential strategic partners, both on the corporate side, on the government side, on the investor side, and really every one of those stakeholders has an interest on kind of what we're doing, how we're doing it. At the end of the day, it's about solving problems for them. So as an early stage company, you really need to find product market fit. And to find that fit, you need to know what problem you're solving. We take that approach from a big data and from either a securitization or sustainability linked bond perspective, and really trying to hone in on an organization's issues and solve those issues.
Fantastic. Great. How about Chris? What is the pain point you're solving?
Sure, absolutely. So the pain point for us in the ESG space using blockchain technology really is around trust. There are all these claims, whether they're on the supply chain side, whether they're to create carbon credits and things like that. And fundamentally, there simply isn't enough trust for all the stakeholders who have to be involved. ESG markets, ESG ecosystems are very heterogeneous. They're very new, meaning you don't have a lot of existing trust between the actors in those marketplaces. So everything that we're doing really is boiling down to, greater sharing of information and therefore greater trust. Because if you want to build a new market, like we want to with carbon, you can't build a new market if the two sides of that market don't trust each other. So everything that we're doing from our blockchain all the way through the applications that we build on top of that blockchain, it's about solving trust and providing trust for these new markets. And
if I could just add one comment, the word trust is such an important aspect. And I think we attribute to the same aspect. Again, we believe high fidelity data, which is source data, is trust, and goes hand in hand with blockchain. So we're super excited about that key aspect.
Yeah, indeed. Alex, you obviously know both of those gentlemen, and you invest in one. So tell us what exactly attracted you on the products, and also at what stage you made the investment.
Yeah, so the investment we made in Blockchain Triangle is pretty recent. What attracted me to the company is that it was a good use of blockchain. It's a little bit hard to understand how to use this technology correctly. There's so much hype and so much information around it that sometimes people just don't know what it's for, right? And what really struck me about Darren's company was that Darren was taking the technology and applying it to the exactly right use case that was also very impactful.
Staying on the investing, what do you look for the most? Obviously, their product and the solution and solving a problem, but from the management team, from the HR point of view, what do you look for in addition to Darren? So were you looking at all the team members and interviewing them before you make that decision?
Well, not interviewing the whole team, but I think we really try to look at the founding teams. Sometimes we like diversity. We definitely look at track record and previous efforts. I think for me, and this is not how many VCs operate, but I really enjoy working with mission-driven founders, because I know that mission-driven founders will not waver and will not get scared of the complexity of the process. So those are the traits I'm looking for, and also, like I already said, the good understanding of the technology solution is really important. I think in this sector of the market, it's more important than in any other sector.
Fair enough. Well, Chris, you obviously have gone through your rounds of funding. What do you look for on the other side for investors, or more of like a reverse interview? They are checking you out, you're also checking them out. So what made you accept their money or even go after them and reach out to them?
Absolutely. I mean, so as an entrepreneur, especially as a young entrepreneur, I think one of the most important things is recognizing the gaps that you have and recognizing the gaps that still exist in your team. There really are lots of funds out there that will have different specialties, whether it's a technological specialty and they can bring in academics and research experts and things like that. Maybe it's an operational efficiency perspective, and it's kind of like the nitty-gritty logistics of growing and scaling a business. So it's first an inward reflection, saying, where am I lacking as an entrepreneur? And then finding VCs that complement your own skill set. But also it's recognizing that it is always more than a check. It is a very long-term relationship, hopefully, that you are entering into. And if you're going through the process thinking, yeah, I can just barely tolerate this person until the check clears, that's not a relationship you're going to want to enter into, because you're going to be building a company together. Some of them will be on your board, and your life will be happier and your company will be more successful if you find good alignment and enjoy and are excited about working with your investors.
Same question goes for Darren. So how do you check out, besides they actually send you the check and agree to the amount and whatever that schedule work out, but do you actually have a drink with folks like Alex and say, if we can do a barbecue together, I think I can live with that and see eye to eye? What's your measurements and check out in the process?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Look, I think we, like Chris said, we look for similar attributes, people or organizations that can complement what you're doing and kind of work within the cadence of how you do it. And the reason for that, in a startup, it's a knife fight. Every day is a knife fight. You're going to be faced with challenges and adversity. And you want people that are going to be rowing in cadence with you, not rowing against you. So that's an important aspect. And certainly the strategic component of the kind of connectivity they can bring, both from a corporate partner perspective, network of other impact-oriented investors. We also are finding that people that have a similar mission set to us is something that rings really true to who we want to partner with, both from a corporate perspective, but also from an investment capital perspective. And I think what we found is what we're doing is not the simplest thing to understand out of the gates, because you're taking two very distinct different types of technologies and weaving those together. So it's helpful to find partners that have that bandwidth to be at the same pace as you as you're going through this, as opposed to that education process, which is expected because they need to get comfortable with your company. But if you can cross off some of those items on the list, it makes everyone more efficient with their time.
Fantastic. I recently have a chance to read one of the impact investors survey. They talk about patient investor. In the past, before this blockchains or other comes in, ESG investing has always been, you do it almost like a CSR. You almost do it knowing that you're going to have a really, really long window before you get anything back. On some of them, don't even expect it to be back, get anything significant investment back. And so I want to pose this question to Alex. Would you label yourself as a patient investor, or how do you categorize yourself on the return, on the window of return? What's your thinking process on that?
I think we expect something along the lines of somewhere in between the cryptocurrency space and the traditional technology space, where in cryptocurrency space, the exits are 1 to 3 years, and in traditional technology are like 7 to 10 years. I think in this sector, we expect something like 5 to 7 years, so shorter, but not too short. I think short exits are really not healthy, because then you're exiting at a stage where the product is not built yet. So in this case, we want, we expect the product build out, and we expect a significant amount of success. And the reason why the exits are shorter is because, in our view, the blockchain tech and the impact space will generate a tremendous amount of attention and capital sort of flows in the future, and it's been really increasing very sharply. So as far as acquisitions, companies going public, alternative types of exits, which might be the case in the case of Topl. They will all kind of be, a little bit faster, but they should not be too fast.
Very good. Well, very good way to put it. So it's in between,
Yeah.
from the crypto to the traditional. Okay, very safe. Very safe to be in between. So with that, I want to dive into a little bit into the climates and also the impact. Impact, it means whole different things to different folks and different investors. So like for example, for me at the opening I mentioned, we use the UN defined sustainable goal as the impact. It has to be environment, it has to be on one scale, and on one side of the scale, on the other side is the social impact, and then everything in between, from educations to the obvious one will be the environments, the land, water, and air. But what is impact to you, Alex, when you say you want to invest in ESG and impact? What's your priority list on impact?
So we are not as formal as what you're describing, and we don't do any kind of impact certification. I think I look at companies to understand what kind of future they bring to be. And if I like it, then I think it's an impact investment. It's a little more complicated than that, but in general, I think we look at, I personally look primarily at climate, but there's also a lot of innovation that happens in, for example, medical data, digital security space, remote work space, which is not so much ESG type impact, but really a construction of the future world. And what I always say is future will be weird, but it might be bad weird or good weird. And when I say good weird, I'm talking about quality of life, I'm talking about safety, I'm talking about environment for sure. I'm talking about quality of relationships, because the types of technology we use really affects how people treat each other. In information technology, we see a lot of negative impact from the early internet unicorns such as Facebook, and it's been getting a lot of really bad information coming out about its sort of practices, right? And when in that area, I'm looking for, again, more verifiability, more transparency, in some cases more privacy when it comes to personal data. So we include all of that in the category of focus for our fund.
Same question goes for Darren and Chris. Maybe Darren, you can start. I do want to add to the impacts, given the fact you're already in the compliance and other things regarding the climate. In the climate world, when you talk about carbon credit, you have the mandatory and the voluntary. So tell us about what impacts which area you making, or you're making in both. So Darren.
Yeah. No, it's so for us, one of the things that really resonated for us is really conversations with asset managers, credit rating agencies, and really the feedback that we heard from them before COP26 and at COP26, and we think plays into what we do, is that the world is tired of the ESG color wheel. They're tired of the black box scores, which doesn't provide any transparency on weightings. And ultimately, what both those stakeholders and actually insurance companies as well have said is that we just want source data. We've got our ESG teams. We know what we value, and we'll do our own math. We just need that data in order to do our own math. And I think that's where we come in, because really at the core of what we do, we take source data from IoT and smart meters and aggregate those in a portfolio construct so that those different stakeholders can receive that information and do what they want to do with it. And really what we're seeing is, and nothing against what ESG has accomplished, till now. I mean, they have created an entire industry of capital flows, which equates to right now 20% of all capital flows going to probably 80 to 90% in the next 5 to 10 years. But really, when we think about things like sustainability linked bonds, which has grown from $50 billion to over $1 trillion this year, all of those investors and credit rating agencies who are attributing better credit rating rates to them, they just want source data. So we're in the business of facilitating that flow of information so that those stakeholders can do their jobs better. And with regard to, as you said, the mandatory versus the voluntary, again, we're very much in the mandatory world. We do believe, and again, I come from a trading world. At the end of the day, you get trading confirms that tell you size, price, and notional. From what we're thinking about, every rec that you get should have the attributable data points, all immutably based on a blockchain, that give that information to that owner of that rec or the person that's buying that rec, so that they can sign off and know that everything is attributable and accountable. And just one last point, and I think this is an important point as we think about this, climate disclosure requirements. That boat has left the dock. And I'll reference in the financial services world, there was a EU regulation that was passed called MiFID, and that was for commission unbundling. But what that forced every asset manager to do was to comply with MiFID, even though the SEC, Australia, Japan didn't pass any rules. This was done by the EU and the UK. And I believe that every asset manager, the top 200, are going to be following this protocol, and they're going to get data. And hopefully we deliver it to them.
Thank you, Darren. Same thing for Chris, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper on that. You're layer one, and you're building that for providing the infrastructure for the other impact or ESG operator. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between you and CeeLo and others who are building it? And if I were the investor, I would say, you tell me what distinguishes you from the others doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So not to put too short of a spin on it, but I think it really becomes a question of how far from scratch are you going in your engineering and development versus are you kind of like reskinning, rebranding something that already exists. So much in the blockchain space really is built on the, quite frankly, for the time, incredible work that Ethereum did way back in 2014, 2015. The problem is, like, our technology and our research have come an amazingly long way from there. And there's just kind of decisions in terms of, how the Ethereum blockchain is structured, and therefore like all derived blockchains are structured, that, make it much more expensive, that make it much more challenging to track things, for example, at the granularity of like that we need for a carbon credit. So kind of if we think through carbon markets specifically, this idea of serialization is incredibly important. That yes, I might have a lot of carbon credits that all come through the same standard, maybe even come through the same project developer, but the serial numbers on those really matter. The process that you have to go through for retirement is an incredibly important piece for people trusting carbon markets, for us to scale carbon markets. And those things have very real implications onto the blockchain level that, Ethereum and its, derivatives just weren't built for. So, going back to something that we talked about earlier, it's about waiting for the market to tell you what it needs. Everything that we do at Topl is actually organized around reference customer programs, which is basically this idea where you will get as many or, at least a reasonable number of people to pre-sign up for your product, your technology, whatever it is, and then go build it with them. Basically offer them discounts, offer them early access in exchange for that incredibly valuable market feedback and early buy-in. ESG markets are complex. There's so much existing expertise in this space, and we really shouldn't think of like ourselves as technologists as capable of like locking ourselves away in a closet for 24 months and saying, I have now developed the solution for ESG. Everyone, you're welcome. We need to talk to the people. We need to actually know what the problems are and rely on that expertise because it exists. And that's our approach.
Next question is more for me and also for those who are listening that already know about the carbon-based carbon credit kind of market. Obviously, you have Vera, you have Gold Standard, you have the American Carbon Credit Registry that's built in the 80s and 90s, that actually in an older platform and technology. For what do you do? Why are you worried that they would just get massive investment and they just upgrade everything to what exactly you're doing, and how do you do that? And I see Alex already shaking his head. That's not going to happen because they're too old and too big to move or whatever. But do enlighten me, both Alex and Chris. Well, why wouldn't that be happen?
So at least from our perspective, really what we see is we just see different expertise. And we see so much expertise on the side of Vera, ACR, on the carbon side. And they really kind of always had to build their own infrastructures because it was necessary. Kind of uniting the certifier and the registry was the only way available to those markets. And we kind of view a lot of these technological innovations as simply allowing them to do what they do best. We work with one of the newer certification bodies, B Carbon, and they have their methodologies, they have their science, they have their models, and that's where they want to focus. And that's where they are world-class experts. But they're like, I need an infrastructure. I need an infrastructure that can be trusted to put this on. So we don't really view it as competitive. We view it more as like, you guys always had to do this infrastructure, even though you were never really good at it, and quite frankly, didn't want to. So, we'll each just kind of focus on what we can all bring to the table.
Got it. Alex?
For me, the company is defined by who the customers are. And with ESG, the market, the audience is changing very rapidly. So when carbon issuance and carbon registry models were first developed, let's say 20 years ago, the target market was large issuers and then large enterprise, right? But right now, the target market is your, millennial with, $20,000 in the bank. And the target market is global, and the target market has all kinds of other players in it. And if you keep, and the reason why I shook my head about can the existing companies kind of adjust to the new situation? Everybody who does any kind of investment or business analysis should read Christensen's Innovation Dilemma, which is a book that really tells you that whoever your target market is, that's who's going to pull you. And it's very, very hard for existing companies to change their markets. So it's the startups that are going to have a very different vision for a very different audience. And the companies that are currently doing this will slowly, either pivot slowly by acquisition or by spin out, or they will slowly fizzle out because again, people who are interacting with these assets right now are very different from people who were doing that 20 years ago.
Fantastic. Appreciate that explanation. No worry on that. So next round of question, we're coming to the end of the year. Looking back, what are some of the biggest learning? And we'd love to hear from Darren and Chris first. As an entrepreneur, as a founder, you're always on the go and always doing fundraisings or developing your dev teams, and you're everywhere. You are every man. So tell us what is the biggest learning takeaway for the year?
I don't know if it's a learning, but I think a reinforcement of a learning that I've had for a bit. And that is, you got to listen to the market. You got to listen to your customers, and they're going to tell you the products that they need, and those are the things that they're going to pay for. So I think the consistent learning or wisdom is, you got to keep your ears open and start with what's the problem that we want to solve for, and what are the business goals that you want to accomplish. I'd say for any of our clients, whether they're governments, large corporations, tribes, in each of those instances, you need to hear what are the pain points and solve for those pain points. And, we have a kit that can be used a number of different ways. But, to Alex's point, you gotta hear the market and adapt to that market within the context of what you're delivering. So I just think, be flexible, be nimble, be open-minded, but ultimately you got to solve problems.
Well said. Chris?
So myself, I'm actually going to address the team element to it. I think everyone's talking right now just about, at least in a lot of countries, how tight the labor market is for especially engineers and kind of people that startups are going after. And I think since we're all focusing on impact and ESG, I think I can be a testament to the fact that having strong mission alignment in your team really does help with a lot of those things. Finding people who are mission aligned with you is a great, it's kind of a great way to build that team, but then also cultivating that and continually reinforcing that and remembering that, your mission and your values are core to your company, even really help with retention in, through the great resignation or whatever it was we were supposed to be going through these last few months. So, yes, it matters from a market side, it matters from an investment side, as we talked about, but it's also really, really powerful when you're building out a team. And it's, truly incredible how much further people can go and how much more excited a team can be when they are, motivated by more than just the salary you're paying them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We have less than 5 minutes to go. So Alex, why don't you say about this wrapping up the year? What was your biggest takeaway from investing all the angel funds you have been using?
It's twofold. On one hand, we're still trying to find a way to raise capital in this very niche subsector, and it's not easy because people tend to put money into things that have already happened, and things that will happen 2 years from now, which are the most lucrative and the most impactful. It's hard to convince people that that's something that's worth their investment. So that's been a journey. We've been semi-successful, but need to learn a little more about how to do that. Also, I was very pleasantly surprised, I guess, by how our thesis actually played out. When we first starting the fund, we didn't know if there was going to be any companies in this sector, and so far we've been, we've been working with companies where we could deploy about 3 times more capital than we have. And it's been very, very pleasant to find out that we were right in the beginning, saying that this sector is going to grow very fast. And we've seen it growing, and it just makes me feel really good.
That's all the time we have. And we end it in a high note that it makes you feel good. It definitely makes all the founders feel good that the capital are being deployed and monies are being used in the right way. So I'll hand it back to Amber. So wrapping up and give us the notes for the next one. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Joe. Great to be with you, Alex and Chris.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Joe. And thank you, Chris, Aleksandr, and Darren for this session. It was a lot passed in this conversation. I can imagine that if you're watching, you may have some questions left, or you just think, I would love to meet Joe, Chris, Aleksandr, or Darren. And if that is the case, please let us know, because we can bring you in touch, or even add you to this video call, so you could meet them straight away. That's always something you can tell us if you'd like to do that after a session. You're inspired, or you have some questions left. Let us know. One thing I picked up from this conversation is that trust is really a key word in the fields you're working in and in the ways you're working. So I think that's a beautiful thing to hear, that you're really working on building trust as well. What I've learned is trust isn't just something that's there. It's really coming from shared experience. So it's good to hear you're working on that, and also by listening. And Aleksandr was saying he's working a lot with mission-driven founders, and because they're not scared of complexity, which also really resonates with me. I was actually asked to MC this event because I wrote together with some other millennials, the One of Value magazine, in which we were exploring new economies, and we're still doing so.
I can talk a lot about that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, because I think also we saw that in building new economies and exploring that way, that it's really done by people who are driven, who have a purpose, and who are mission driven. So yeah, I just wanted to remind also the audience that if you're curious about this magazine, you can order it this weekend with 20% off with the promo code Harvest21, because of course the theme of the Vested Summit is harvest. A beautiful theme at the end of the year, I think. Then our next session will be a success story of Village Capital, and the session is called Africa Rising. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you in 5 minutes.